From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris coming to you live and direct on the big show on this Tuesday. It is, of course, 8 o'clock, and we're going to get to your phone calls as I hope you join in the program. We've got an interesting one. We're going to start the program with a guest, and we're going to be taking calls for her if you'd like. We're going to talk to her about some of what's happening in Metro with regard to our police department, law enforcement, some specific things she's been involved with, but since she's a council member, we're also going to maybe get her to elaborate on some other things happening right now in the city. And again, you'll be invited to join in that conversation. Also, later in the program, we'll open up the phone lines near the end on some significant stories, including one that I posted yesterday, basically, linking it to the Tennessee connection. I broke that with regard to these mysterious seeds being sent unsolicited to Americans from China and what they represent. Bizarre story on all that. But we'll get to that down the road, give you a chance to sound off throughout the program. And let's introduce our guest this morning. Councilwoman Sharon Hurt is joining us. And I'm sorry? Yeah, Sharon Hurt. Councilwoman, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I do. Good morning.
Good morning, Sharon. Thank you for joining us. And we've got a lot to talk to you about. I know you've been very much involved with the council with regard to steps being taken to create more transparency and to, in your mind, I'm sure, give us the best police department we can have in this city. And I just wanted to get from you kind of where things stand now. I mean, through the last meeting, some proposals out there have been dropped. There's one still remaining, I think, something that you brought up. Give us a little bit of an overview of where things stand right now.
Well, actually, I want to say that I think that the police department has done a great job, and we've got to continue to improve upon the things. With the wake of the George Floyd incident and all the things that's going on across this country, the unrest, there has to be some police reform. And I actually had a trio of bills that I had proposed, but I pulled two of them because I knew that those two in regarding to implicit bias training, as well as the one in regards to the body cameras, is all wrapped up in the Community Oversight Office's advisement of the 8 can't wait policies.
Right.
So I pulled those. One that I did still have is the one regarding the hiring practices of the Metro Police Department, because we want to make sure that the community knows, first of all, that we hear them, and there has to be trust between the community and the police force.
And remind folks what that was. Remind folks again what that is with regard to hiring that you want to have, part of the policy now moving forward. What is that specifically?
Basically, what I'm asking is that there's some explicit language that prohibits the hiring of persons who have documented misconduct or malfeasance in his or her background. The police department has policies right now that speaks to that. However, it's not quite as explicit as the wording in my bill. So therefore, it leaves room for some discretion for it to be interpreted a way that may not necessarily be exactly what it is that we looking for and what we want. So having more explicit language basically lays out the things that can and cannot be, because it's a common sense thing to me. People who we know
Sure.
that have had some serious misconduct in the past, and I think the problem really lies in the post commission of it, or how things are done. We have had people all over this country who have been fired repeatedly for things that have happened, but because once it goes to arbitration, the judge may relieve them of it, or it's never put on their records and it's not documented, so you may not know, and therefore people can ease in, and then they are there. I guess a risk to them doing some similar things in another city or state.
You want to try to prevent against that. Well, I mean, that to me, I'm with you. I think, Councilwoman, that sounds like common sense to me, to make sure that you don't bring that kind of element into the department. I wanted to get your kind of take, too, right now with regard to maybe whatever role it might be that the council can play, along with the Citizens Board and others, with regard to replacing, Police Chief Anderson. We now know that we're going to have a new police chief. Your thoughts on that, and whether or not you feel that individual, I imagine there's probably some qualified candidates within the department. Certainly there will be a search to look nationwide. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Metro Human Relations sent out a letter to the mayor and to the council, and they had some very good points in it. And I really like what it is that they're saying. They actually have created implicit bias training for the police that they want to institute and have on an annual basis. And I think it's something that we really should consider and look into in making it a part of the annual continuing learning for our police officers. And with what it is that they proposed, I think is perfect. No one knows your home like you do. I do appreciate being outside and people coming in and giving their expertise and the best practices in terms of consultation. However, I do think that we know Nashville better than anyone else. And there needs to be a change in the culture in the Nashville Police Department, for sure. But we've got to make sure that there is some accountability held. Most of us know the things that need to be done, how it needs to be done. The problem lies in enforcing it and holding people accountable to getting that done. I think that the council, along with the community oversight office, the Community Oversight Board, Metro Human Relations, and the search committee that that the mayor has assigned, I think is a good base of individuals that can assure that we're going to bring in the very best qualified and the one that can give us the kind of reform and build the trust between the law enforcement and the community.
Let's take a phone call. We've got Ann on line one. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
Hi.
Last week, Ashley Davis, chairperson for the Community Oversight Board, along with Jill Prickett, sent a letter to Mayor Cooper expressing their disapproval of the way Chief Anderson had been interacting with the Community Oversight Board and asking Mayor Cooper to intervene and to force Chief Anderson's cooperation with the board effectively immediately. On July 9th, a 9-page letter was circulated throughout to the council and throughout Davidson County to many people, detailing many infractions within Chief Anderson's department. This 9-page letter for the last 3 weeks has relatively remained quiet, although it does specifically name employees who have been treated unfairly and been held back from advancement within the department, covering the last 5 to 10 years. What is your comment on the letter that Mayor Cooper got last week and the 9-page letter that was sent to council members and other elected officials in this city dictating how employees within the department, specifically African Americans, most specifically females, who have been treated unfairly by Chief Anderson and their infractions or not infractions that have withheld them from advancing within Metro Police?
All right, and stand by. Let's let the Councilwoman respond. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Ann, for your comments and your question. It is disheartening for me, and I think it's really unfortunate that we've had to have such communication to be sent. That's something that the Minority Caucus has been talking to the mayor and specifically requesting that he ensures that there is direct communication from Chief Anderson with the Community Oversight Board, with the Community Oversight Office. I think it is a direct insult to the people of this city because the Community Oversight Board was overwhelmingly voted for by the citizens of Nashville, and for them to not acknowledge them and respect them and the role that they have is unacceptable. I believe that there are those kinds of things that have been outlined in that letter to the mayor as well as to council members and others that must be reviewed immediately. Those things need to be investigated. That's the purpose of the Community Oversight Board. And frankly, I think that the transparency and the Community Oversight Board works on behalf of the police as well as the citizens. Now, if there's nothing to hide, then why not just open it up? Let's look in it and fix it. And we've got too much problems, too much trouble. We don't want to see something like George Floyd's incident happen here in Nashville. So when we know that there are things that are not right, then we got to correct them. And I believe that it is incumbent upon us to ensure that that is done sooner rather than later. And now that we've got new leadership coming, the best thing to do is to try to get all of that out in the open and find some way to start addressing them. It's not going to change overnight, but at least we need to get things in place to make sure that we correct the wrong.
All right, Councilwoman, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got more questions and comments for you. So if you'll stay right there, we'll take that break and we'll be back with more with Councilwoman Sharon Hurt right after this. Stay with us.